Hi, I'm Cara Bognar, founder and CEO of Tier NIL, where we help universities create revenue-generating strategies all through athlete-led camps, clinics, and lessons. Today, I'm joined by Eddie, the Director of Athlete Influence at Cincinnati, and helping run the entire NIL program there. Eddie, it's great to have you today.
I'm super excited to be here. This is my first time in Chicago
Oh, we were so excited. I think we're going to go check out the Bean afterwards and
at McDonald's.
McDonald's deep dish?
Yes.
Absolutely. I think we got to add a Chicago hot dog in there too.
What's on that?
Oh, I'm from South Carolina.
Is that
I
one of
probably
those
should know
like
better.
pickles on a hot dog deal?
It's relish and mustard, tomatoes,
I'll try it.
some
Sure.
sort of salt.
They
It's
got me to
delicious,
try
I swear.
Skyline chili. I'll try anything.
That's true. It's brutal being from Cincinnati. That's awesome. Well, before we get too far into things, I'd love to just learn a little bit more about your background. So, starting at an LSU on the event management side, Team USA powerlifting, and then eventually moving into the NIL world at Cincinnati. It's not really a straight line. So, would love to just hear a little bit more about how you got to where you are today and how that journey impacted you.
Yeah, I'm a very non-traditional student athlete. Some would even say not even a student athlete, because if you're not an NCAA student athlete, I would say they don't consider you a student athlete. But went to practice, had to do grades, went to PT a lot. My first experience with athletics was in high school. I wanted to play football, and I was like, for football, I need to be big, fast, strong. And I got strong and faster, never got any bigger, so I had to pivot sports. I was oddly strong for my weight class, so I got into powerlifting, and then Team USA found me. I got recruited out of high school to do college powerlifting, which I didn't know was a thing. And I went to Midland University in Fremont, Nebraska. Crazy pool, I know. And then we won 2 national championships there, and I was like, man, one day I should probably get a job. So I was already on Team USA at this point. I felt like I could handle my own powerlifting stuff. So I was like, where's the biggest, best athletic program that I could think of that I can afford to go to as a student with no scholarship? And it was LSU, because I'm from New Orleans. So go to LSU, and right around, like literally perfect timing, 2021, the first NIL deal I've ever remember seeing is Bo Nix with Milo's Sweet Tea, and everyone's freaking out, running around, and I'm like, why is everyone? They're like, the athletes can do brand deals now, and I was like, they couldn't before. I just left event management as an intern to go into administration, so I'm working under our AD, Scott Woodward, and our CFO, Matthew Laborde, and like all the big wigs of the athletic department. And I'm like, why is everyone freaking out? This is just normal. So then I meet Taylor Jacobs, who is leaving compliance to go head in ILSU as it is. And she was already an influencer in her own right. She had I believe it's a blog, and then she did a lot of social media stuff. And I'm kind of just watching her, who I think she is the original pioneer of NIL in the college space, and just kind of like, this is fun. Why don't people want to do this? I love doing brand deals, and I was on Team USA. And then right when that all happened, I got to spend like about 6 months before I had to graduate. And I applied at a couple different places, and then Cincinnati called, and it was a fit. I was there in compliance for about 2 months, and then I was like, I'd rather do NIL. So luckily, our admin trusted a 24-year-old, 25-year-old to run an entire NIL department with the guidance. I was supervised for a little bit, and then we just kind of, no one knew what it was, so we all just kind of figured it out together, and that's how I got here.
No, it's definitely been a crazy market, and I know everyone uses the Wild West, and we keep hearing that term over and over again, but it really has changed since 2021. And so you've played sports at truly the highest levels and have also seen it across different schools, nationwide, different arenas and perspectives. So in your opinion, how has NIL essentially continued to shift from when you first started into it and to where it is today?
There's hunters and gatherers in the world, which is hunting, going out, pitching brands, doing the sales cycle, making sure they get real ROI, either adjacent or indirect or direct, depending on what their KPIs are. And then there's this emergence of synthetic NIL, which is, hey, please give our revenue share sports deals so we can, compete. And I think finding a way to do both ethically, but also keeping the athletes in mind, has been the biggest change. I see like most schools that are going, you can't go, you hear these rosters that are 60, 50, $40 million. You cannot do that without a above cap NIL deal. So when I think about the landscape as a whole, it's just, you're giving these kids more deals, but if you tell them their brand is worth $70,000 a deal, then they think their brand is worth $70,000 a deal. So when a real deal comes from a legit company, let's say let's say McDonald's, and McDonald's wants to work with them for one post for 5K, which would be 5x the highest value of like the national average in both Open Doors influencer, and I've seen in my own school, they'd be like, oh no, that's not what I'm worth. So I think just balancing winning, because winning is all that matters to me. I'm very transactional. But also like making sure they actually are educated and build a brand and understand the landscape, what's going on. I feel like we're always like, oh, these kids get paid, they're pros. It's not our fault. We don't care. But if I was 16 and they were like, yeah, when you go on your official visits to A&M, LSU, and Midland, like someone's going to offer you a rev share contract, and then someone's like, I didn't sign up for that, but that's just I'm not going to fault a kid for taking $2 million when someone else offered him one. Like, the adults made this landscape, and it's the kids' job to deal with it. And I think that we don't think about that enough.
And you work with more than 500 student athletes on a day-to-day basis. So with working with them, how do you take the approach that keeps them grounded in what they do, make sure that they are, we're all in university, so getting a great degree, setting themselves up for success later in life. What does that look like in your day-to-day of how do you navigate the waters, especially in this new rev share era?
And we all deserve to have our own personal brands. I think it doesn't matter how good you are. It just matters how good people think you are. I say that to our coaching staff a lot because, a valid question you would get from a coach who knows something about NIL is, oh, well, why does my star player get no deals, but this person on the bench get deals? And, to them, all that matters is like results on the field, but that doesn't matter to McDonald's because that's not how that tracks. I think it's explaining to them and being very candid and open. I would say my athletes have a better understanding of the landscape than probably any other athlete because I tell them, I'm like, this is the cap, this is the rev share, this is, there's a look-in that they could do to like increase, like all these things, because educating them on how to disclose an NIL deal for the FTC and like the basic function of my job is important, but you can't win a game if you don't know the full scope of the rules. So like, hey, this is why you didn't get that deal, which is a conversation I have to have with a lot of them. Like, you were cussing on this post, and they saw that, and it flagged you. Or, like, they showed me their AI scan and did of your account, and this, and this. So I think just being real with them and having those honest conversations, they don't like it in the moment, but they always appreciate it on the back end.
Absolutely. And you've dropped a couple terms about the cap, rev share. For those of us listening who might not necessarily be on top of everything that's happening, especially as the market continues to shift, what is that? And why is that relevant for athletic departments currently?
There was a lawsuit. There's a bunch of lawsuits. And now there's a $20.5 million cap, which is going to go up to, I don't want to say the wrong number, but it's going to go up. And what it created is, you can only fund so many sports. You can only do so many things. And obviously football, basketball are the main drivers of every athletic department. So you have to go above the cap to have a championship roster, quote unquote. So what I do technically on paper is do all of our above cap deals. So if you're paying in the cap, that means the money's coming from the university. If you're paying above the cap, it's coming from a third-party entity with a valid business purpose.
That makes complete sense. And diving kind of deeper into that above the cap revenue, how has that looked like, one, specifically at Cincinnati and also at other schools across the country? Are there any innovative solutions you've seen? Is that something that's mostly handled by the school itself, or have you guys leaned on third parties?
I've seen some cool stuff at some schools. I just saw like a couple of schools doing roundups for concessions. Like I think our industry as a whole likes to ask people for $1 million or $2 million, $3 million. You get one donor that's rich, and you just hope for the best. But I think the squeeze of revenue share has really made athletic departments get really creative, and I think that's only going to get more and more as the squeeze goes up and up and up. I think the biggest thing with us is we brought our MMR rights in-house. So we were previously with a third-party rights company. Now we own everything in-house, and it's been the coolest thing ever. Our entire Cincy Sports partner team are the best people I've ever worked with. They all come from the pro space, FC Cincinnati, the Bengals, the Reds, etc. We treat our athletes and our athletic department like a talent agency and a pro sports team more so than a college sports team because that's where the landscape is going. We educate them like they're college athletes, but we sell and wheel and deal and assign assets like they're a pro sports team.
That's incredible. And you've seen some incredible success with the program as well. In 2024, you were named the best institutional NIL program at the NIL Summit. And would love to just hear a little bit more about what did the committee tell you that really set you apart from the other institutions? And also, how have you continued to drive that as NIL shifts?
I think it was our In Her Likeness event. I am agnostic to who gets what deal. As I'm the head of football and men's basketball NIL technically, and I have like, if you split my job into four quarters, it's football, men's basketball, high elite Olympic sport athletes, and then Rev Gen just in general for above, so everybody, right? I don't, and I tell you this, I don't care who gets the deal. Like, it's football, my starting quarterback, my third string punter, like, it doesn't matter. I just enjoy doing deals and help. Like, I enjoy helping people, but I'm also deeply transactional. So the best way I can help the world is by helping people get out there and like show the world their talents. Like, something that I really enjoyed doing last year was my punter, who's international, was able to. He loves animals, so we were able to partner him with an animal shelter to like promote and get more donations for that. Like, while there was no financial compensation, actually he donated to them, but while there was no financial compensation to him, that's still a deal to me because I set it up, I did all the stuff. Yeah, I think just deals like that and opportunities like that, like, I truly feel like all of my student athletes can participate in NIL. They all know they come to my office and ask me, sometimes for some ridiculous ask. I've been asked for a Lamborghini. I've been asked for to be a Nike Premier Athlete. I've been asked for a lot of things. But also they know, like, oh, like, just because I don't play, and I meet with all our football recruits and most Olympic sports as well, I tell them, like, I want you to play and I want you to go pro, but while you're on the roster, you're my problem. So even if you want that ice cream shop across the street, I will walk over there with you and try to shake them down for a deal. If you want Nike, we're going to have a different conversation, but I will walk through that with you, regardless of where you are on the roster.
And I mean, going back to In Her Likeness, I think you saw more than 500 deals resulting from this one event directly to female student athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's just dive deeper into what is that, whether it's a gap you saw in the market or how are you just creating these opportunities with female athletes? Is this athlete driven?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I don't care who gets the deal. I just like to follow money. And I think the demand from a consumer base is for female athletes. I'll put you like this. I don't think there's a better choice on who does the deal. I think there's a better time. So if it's a championship segment, World Cup, etc., I want to activate around my male influencers. So the players themselves, but also you've seen it, like I Show Speed, Jameis Winston, like the people that already have a high male pop that are going to watch this and will buy whatever you're selling. That is 20% of the time, right? And they make a lot of money. It's 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. The other 80% of the time, the day-to-day, that's where girls dominate. So 5 out of 7 days, your Rode, your John Frieda, your Tampax, your Gillette, like all those brands that are daily use cases for most people, not even girls, but most people. That's where girls have the most influences and buying power. And just, I think men have influence to be like, yeah, man, that was cool. Like, I want a Ford truck because I saw my offensive lineman that just won the Super Bowl drive off in a Ford truck. And that hero moment, that's where men dominate because obviously the most watched sports are men's sports. Like, so you have those big, huge Super Bowl, NBA final like moments. I'm going to Disney World, etc. But that's what, once, twice, maybe like extrapolate that 100 times a year. Women's sports and women athletes are influencing every single day. In fact, I cannot see an Indiana Fever player without thinking of TJ Maxx because their background is the TJ Maxx. Like, so that's what like they have more staying power.
No, that's absolutely incredible to hear. And I know you lean hard on data with athletes, hard on data with brands, making sure that everything you're doing has this tangible, real market ROI that you can kind of push back. So with that data, what are one or two of the most surprising things that has either told you about what student athletes either value in NIL or on the vice versa, what brands are looking at?
Yeah, for the student athlete part, money is actually not the most important thing. That's probably a me thing because I always tell them money follows skill and everything's a skill issue. I truly believe everything in my life is a skill issue. If I'm bad at something, it's my fault. I should get better at it. So I bring that to my student athletes as well. If your video didn't get a lot of likes, it's probably because you did something wrong or just delete it and re-upload it. Who cares? Unless it's a brand deal, then don't do that. But Yeah, I think money isn't the main driver. It's affinity to product. So, I've seen people not do $1,000 deal with a product that they don't know anything about, which is good. I'm glad I'm teaching them ethics. And I've seen them do, a $500 or even less deal with a product that they love. Like, and I mean love. I know so much about, oh my God, what's that thing called? Park. Yeah. Those Park mock
Yep.
necks. That is my most requested thing right now. I got to find Park, whoever Park is. And I know she has a first name, and I don't remember it off the top of my head. My girls are going to kill me if they see this. But, yeah, like, that is my most requested thing. Like, and there's so many brands, too, that, to me, as a 29-year-old male, I didn't know existed. I thought they were just making up, like, Aerie and Roller Rabbit and all these different things that they want me to go get them, and I'm happy to do, that they have to sit down and show me. Aritzia.
Oh, that's a good one.
I don't have enough time to talk about Aritzia. Wow. Altered State. And, like, we did an deal with Altered State 2 years ago. Like, stuff like that. So that's where the data to me really was shocking. Like, okay, like, they would rather just get free Altered State or free Aritzia stuff than the money itself because they were buying it anyway. So it's a net positive for them. Versus dudes, my guys, they want to get paid, but they also want to get paid for doing something that is going to be cool. Like, they really more so care about perception and, like, the general, like, does it really increase my brand versus girls inherently know if I walk around with this, we did a couple deals with Coach. If I walk around with these Coach shoes and this Coach bag, like, oh, they're going to know I got Coach on. Like, guys, it has to be, like, very apparent in your face, and girls is more subtle. And on the brand side, I tell this to everyone, but, like, followers don't matter as much as you think. Obviously, if you have a million followers, then, yeah, you have some staying power. But the main thing they're looking for is engagement rate, positivity of comments, not just comments, but positivity of comments. So if you're rage baiting everyone, they're not going to want to like partner with you. And then the biggest thing for me is how many brand deals I'm doing now where it's 2 posts and then 1 deliverable, just a UGC ad they can run as whitelisting, because I love all of our college athletes, but some of them are not known, but they make amazing content. So for the brand, it's more important for them to have the athlete that's just an influencer than the marks and logos. So that's being built into a lot of contracts I'm seeing now, and it's actually really cool because it's one less thing that the athlete has to post, but they're doing it anyway, and it increases the value of the deal. So.
Well, it makes sense. And especially back at those athletes, if they're already using the product, this is truly authentic to their name, image, and likeness, like we like to bring up there. And for a brand to see that makes better content, makes better opportunities, makes better influence, and truly being able to influence really everyone around them. And so looking at NIL and realizing that the philosophy that it doesn't just have to be financial compensation, that it can help holistic development for the next 40 years, because college is only 4 years. Well, now we have 5 years of eligibility with the new shift. Yep, shifting a little there. But really what we're doing is setting up these athletes for a true lifelong success. So I'd love for you to break down a little bit more into the Cincy Connect program. What does that look like? How does that affect your day-to-day in making sure that you have this holistic approach to the education and to the well-being of these athletes?
My direct report, Grace, she's awesome. She runs like the day-to-day. She's the brains behind our department. I'm just the guy. I just like run around and DM people on Instagram. But she handles the education plan, and she's really big in the social media and branding and making sure that the athletes know like what they're doing and how they're operating and how they're being perceived and how they want to be perceived and shifting that. My biggest thing for all of our athletes, more so our males and even our females, is them being able to speak up. Because, again, back to the whole landscape that us adults created. Actually, I had nothing to do with that, but the other adults that created this. You get into a rev share conversation, you get into a brand agreement, whatever. It's your agent, it's your mom, it's Eddie if you're at Cincinnati. Like, it's Eddie doing stuff for you. And what I try to do is I try to bring our athletes as much as I can into those conversations. Be like, hey, do you want exclusivity or do you want to just take less money and not have to worry about that so we can pitch some, like, because they don't know. Like, there's so many times I sent an athlete contract and they've sent it back to me signed on DocuSign. And I was like, did you read that? That you didn't read that. You sent it to me, so I know it's good. I'm like, yeah, but was there any terms in there you didn't want? Like, because no, I trust you, which is great, Ralph, like all. But I want them to be able to fend for themselves. Like, there's going to be a point where everyone, if you're going to the NFL, the NBA, like, yeah, get an agent, get a certified agent or like a real agent, but you should be able to know what's going on in your life to be able to be like, I don't like those terms. So for me, while, yeah, Grace has an amazing education plan that is like, I'm on it every month, and then we have topics and like workshops and all these things. I'm like, hey, football player, we just did a deal with X brand. What is the exclusivity term of your contract? And if they can't tell me that, I'm not doing my job right.
It's an incredible approach. Have to make sure that everyone knows exactly what they're signing, what they're doing, and how they're continuing to just figure out their deals. Make sure that they're educated because, they're the ones signing, they're the ones creating these opportunities, going out into the world, finding new ways to do it. It's truly their own brand. And really, we're all just facilitators to make sure that they have the best channels, the best opportunity, and hopefully the best education as we continue to move it forward. And I know you've done a phenomenal job with it. And so switching wheels a little bit, one of the biggest complaints that we hear, whether it's from ADs, NIL directors across the board, is that the market is just almost moving faster than compliance can keep up. So how do you continue to stay innovative, to continue to push limits, but also while keeping everything above board, compliant, working well, because legislation changes, rules change, and the brand itself is tricky to keep up with what's moving?
Man, I'm not going to lie. I'm so sorry, compliance department. I'm so sorry, AD. I don't really read the rules. My job, I work in influencer marketing at a college. I'm the head of a talent agency at a college. The only rules I typically care about are the FTCs and occasionally the CSCs when it applies to me, but all their deals are in an go. For me, I think those rules that they're talking about, like even 5 for 5 and eligibility, like those aren't things that affect my sales cycle. Those aren't things that will impact, like the CSC saying, any deal under X amount will go, like, it doesn't matter if it gets auto approved. I got to go get the deal anyway.
Right.
So for me, we have an awesome compliance department and NIL goes task force and like brand squad and everything that keeps me up to date. And obviously I read them, but I don't stay up reading about these things. I stay up reading like what's the next trend in social media. Like for me personally, I think we're about to start touching grass again. So how can we host more events? How can we get athletes out? I think appearances just look at Fanatics Fest. Like people went out, like people want to go out. We found that on COVID, but even more so now with the rise of AI and like being able to Claude co-work everything. And like if I can automate my tasks and take my workload down to 20% and I got 6 extra hours to go outside, I'm going to want to go outside. And I can only go to the gym for like an hour and I'm going to be bored after that. So I just think for me, yes, if you're trying to keep up with everything at once, it's overwhelming. But like I said, at Cincy, we have an amazing fragmented approach to that. So like I'm focused on like truly influencer marketing. Our CSP team is focused on sponsorship stuff. We signed a deal with Monster Energy.
Congratulations, that's incredible.
The conference did, and literally it was like, okay, we got the sponsorship part. Eddie handled NIL. The other stuff is going that like, and so I only have to worry about what I have to worry about. But yes, if I was an AD, yeah, it's a lot going on.
It really is. And especially like you talk a little bit about events, you talk about appearances. What's that looking like? Fanatic Fest. We've done a lot more into the event space. We've dove into camps, into clinics, into what are all the different creative ways that we can actually work to allow athletes to monetize their own brand in a way that feels authentic to them. And so I would just love you to touch on how important is that authenticity with an athlete? How important is it that they are doing something that matters to them, that is tangible, versus, everything else that's out there?
So I would say I am pretty big on not violating federal laws. So I like
Aren't we all?
So like I remember when NIL first came out, it was like, oh, well, your state law matters. And I was
Right.
like, okay, so the FTC is our god right now. Like we cannot violate those laws. The NCAA is like second to the FTC. Like if I got to go to court with one, I would rather go to the So I'm big on like, hey, like if you say you use this product, you got to use it. So for me, one thing I always ask for before I negotiate a deal, before I ink a deal, is can you send over a free product? That's even more and more rare because I have my kids tell me the stuff they already use. Like I want to go after what you're already using. Now, if we get inbound and it's new stuff, Jason from Market Price, shout out to Jason from Market Price. Always, he likes the products. He lost a lot of stuff, and the kids like it or don't like it, but they don't have to post about it. But yeah, we try to avoid that because you know, when you're in a conversation with someone you don't want to talk to and it just kind of slogs. And even when you're putting on your best face, it's still kind of, That's what it's like with the NIL. Even if our awesome creative team does the content, even if it's for $1 million, like even all that said, it's just like if you're gonna throw the product away after the shoot's over with, you can just feel it. And at first, I didn't believe that. Like I didn't believe it. But then I saw it happen at like I was at some conference and I saw someone do a promo for something, and I was like, oh yeah, he doesn't use that at all. And you can really just feel it. That's why, again, I think women have that staying power is because they use it and they're keeping that after. Like,
And so looking at NIL as a whole, it's going to continue to shift. We're going to have to continue investing and being innovative in these departments and finding new ways to work with athletes, to work with brands, to work with third parties. So where do you think that the forward-thinking athletic departments and NIL programs should be investing in now to see the benefits over the next 24 months?
I think we've always been behind on this, but I think content and storytelling, the schools that do this really well are the biggest schools in the country because they have more stories to tell and they have more money, though. But I think, and I don't mean this in a RevGen way, like, yeah, like we could go hire 20 creatives and then make a content thing, put up a paywall and hope people buy it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I just mean like, as someone that sells and you pitch your company, it's brutal. Like, why should people care? And I think like we have so many awesome stories that you see. I drove from Cincinnati I passed by like Butler and Purdue. I'm sure they have so many awesome stories going on there, but you only have so many SIDs, you only have so many creatives. Football, basketball takes up the brunt. You got like, why should these companies want to work with you and not someone else? So that's why I think storytelling and being creative and having those authentic stories is the most important thing and will indirectly make you money, which people don't want to hear that right now, but they want direct revenue. But, I've had so many companies reach out because we write our own NIL stories with our awesome SIDs and like, hey, this happened. This girl's diabetic. She wanted to branch up. Like, oh, I'm having like diabetic companies reach out about my track athlete because they saw that she did a deal with Dexcom and like, how can they add to that? And like, how can they bring more awareness to type 2? And like, that doesn't happen if we don't talk about it. But that we don't talk about it if I'm not like, storytelling is important. If our SIDs aren't like, yeah, we should get on this. If our AD doesn't give me the blessing to do that. So like, we're lucky enough to do that. And I think you see at the bigger schools, they do that. So I think storytelling will be huge. But I also think too, I think college athletics needs to realize that most of the time we're not the only show in town, especially at my school. We're like, whew, it's rough out there. The Bengals, Reds, the Cyclones, FC Cincinnati. So why truly should they spend their hard-earned money on a ticket to a UC game instead of one of those other games?
And we hope it's because they care about the players.
Yeah.
There's a story behind it. They can see them personally. They know exactly what they're doing, why they should matter, and really invested in that growth and that journey and how they can continue moving forwards. So one of the most creative uses of actually working with NIL that we've been able to see is actually finding different ways to decrease donor fatigue. And so whether that's through content, storytelling, events, job placements even, we've seen truly a full spectrum of how that's worked. And so I would love to hear a little bit more about what your approach has been with almost marrying the two, and how has NIL either helped with donors, forged new relationships, or just created different opportunities that we didn't see before?
Yeah, I think in the past model we had before NIL and even early in NIL, it was just go ask a donor for this and give it to your collective and figure it out on the back end. But, that's not a thing anymore. The CSC got rid of that, which is a good thing. And I think going forward now, it's like, what value can we bring to them that we couldn't before? So how can we get our donors' kids to go to a top-tier NIL lesson and, go and get them in front of the kid? Like, more so than ever, they can book appearances. They can book a player to come to their house to, like, hang out with their friends at their country club. Like, all the, like, men's and women's golf, I know that's a huge, like, racket across the, and tennis, speaking of rackets, across the country. Just player appearances and, like, stuff they just couldn't do before because it was illegal. So how can we, like, figure out what our donors want and service them? And then also, they're rich for a reason. A lot of them own a business. And, we've had such a good success with placing athletes in jobs because of NIL and
That's
connecting
incredible.
them with donors and being like, hey, Sally wants to work in medical device sales, and then the donor works for a medical device sales company, and Sally doesn't have time for an internship, but we can put together a mock NIL internship, and then she realizes she really does love it, And I have 2 football players going on this exact thing tomorrow. And they're going to do an internship with a company, with a billion-dollar company that they would not have been able to do if they did not have NIL.
That is exceptional. It really is showcasing stories, putting athletes to the front, to the forefront, and allowing them to. And I know we've seen from an employment perspective that athletes have so many tangible and intangible soft skills that you don't typically have reflected in a report card or even on the perform of a internship itself. And so as you've watched and kind of grown up with athletes, been an athlete yourself, mentored thousands at this point of players, what would you say some of those skills are that you've seen translate into the world of NIL or even into the employment world afterwards?
My athletes are, you can only be a hunter or a gatherer. My athletes are hunters. So I take them through the sales cycle. They know what brands we're pitching. We put together the pitch together. They have made decks. All of my athletes have been a deck before. And so I think a lot of them, obviously, the athlete to sales pipeline is heavy, as you know. But then, a lot of them go into like marketing or they go into healthcare. And those are things where I don't know if aggressive is the word, but you want to set the pace and set the tone, and you don't want to wait. Like, if you think something's wrong with your patient and you have the knowledge, you go deal with it. Like, they're not passive. Like, we don't raise passive people in athletics. So that's the main thing. The main advantage they have is, like, the average person is passive. Like, the average person wants someone to tell them what to do. They don't know how to, like, figure it out. Versus the average athlete, like, if you wait to figure it out, you're getting yelled at. You got to do some burpees. So
No, it's more than true. And I think one of my favorite statistics is I think it's 85% of women in C-suites have played sports. And so a lot of that's been college sports, a lot of that's been incredibly competitive high school sports, but it's one of those things that we see move forwards and just, especially with women, give the ability to take risks, to fall down, get back up, and figure out who am I in the world and how do I self-advocate for myself and make sure that I'm doing my job to the best of my ability and continuing to move forwards.
agree. All of our girl athletes are the hunters. That's where all the revenue comes from.
Hey, it's amazing to see, and it's all based on consumers. Well, Eddie, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. It's been absolutely incredible, and looking forward to taking you around the rest of Chicago for Sports Tech Week.
Thank you for having me. McDonald's, if you're watching this, your CEO's from Cincinnati, so hit me up while I'm here.